So I've just left the House of Lords, where there is a fairly interminable discussion going on about the trade bill and endless amendments, and my fellow Lords are going to be discussing it throughout the evening. I've left at this point as I'm not down to speak. But something really struck me when I was listening to the debates is the endless amendments and the arguments about the trade bill are all caveated by the knowledge that this is the first time that the UK has had to negotiate trade deals on its own. And so all of the queries and the questions are, well, we haven't had to organise or do trade deals before. And of course, this is an indication of one of the reasons why I voted to leave the European Union, which is that we just outsourced those kind of skills, that kind of expertise elsewhere. And of course, a load of the amendments that are coming in are from people who don't think we should leave the European Union at all, want to still hold up and cling to the EU as much as possible, saying that we can't do it on our own, and effectively saying we've got to copy the way the EU does things, which is in and of itself an interesting aside. Just on that clinging on point, one of the issues that I spoke about last week was the state aid bill. And there was an amendment put forward by a Labour frontbencher arguing that we should, in fact, carry on following the EU state aid rules, that we weren't ready to be able to go our own way. And this is just an extraordinary thing to note, that the Labour Party, which for many years fought for the right to give state support for new jobs, to, in fact, nationalise industries, would be the people who would hold on to the state aid rules of the EU, which effectively stops the state aiding in the creation of jobs, or you have to ask permission. And I thought, again, it was this desperation to cling on that they'd even sacrificed some of the main manifesto promises in the last election, which you couldn't do with the EU state aid rules. Anyway, I got very agitated a couple of times last week, which I thought I'd tell you about. I was in a complete fury about the COVID regulations, and there was a big debate, and I had a long time to speak in it, but quite a number of people pulled out of that debate unexpectedly. I think we might describe that as the Tory whips being effective, and so I got to speak earlier than I'd anticipated. And as soon as I started speaking, I got into a fluster and a panic, and I had my notes in the wrong order. But anyway, so I carry on doing my speech, and through, this whole COVID regulation discussion, I could hear this grumbling close by me, and it was somebody effectively heckling me. Now, you won't have heard that on the film, but eventually this culminated in, and I've got to find his name, Lord Fuchs of Cunnock, who basically said, this woman is mad, totally mad. And then when I kind of queried, he said, excuse me, I'm just making my point. He said, I'm just saying that you are mad, totally mad. So the reason I know that it's Lord Fuchs of Cunnock, who is, of course, a leading Labour member of the House of Lords, was because one of the funniest things that's happened to me is that is absolutely written down word for word in Hansard. So you've got to love Hansard, that the record book will have this man calling me mad. But what was also interesting was that this is completely against all the rules. And, but he wasn't corrected or nobody said anything. It was all very embarrassing. And you should also know that there's usually quite a lot of kind of grumbling when I speak, again, against all the rules, usually from the Lib Dems, if I'm fair. They're kind of like, oh, that woman, all the time. It's really irritating. But, the rules are the rules, and you're not meant to heckle in that way, particularly because of COVID regulations, would you believe? So anyway, I was reflecting on this when I received an email from Baroness Sheila Noakes that evening, explaining to me that I had myself broken some of the rules inadvertently. Now, this is quite funny. I was determined, during my COVID speech and my state aid speeches, I wanted to be absolutely like a baroness. And so I kept talking about my honourable friends, my honourable Baroness so-and-so, my honourable Lord so-and-so, my honourable friend here. And she pointed out to me that I'd got all the words wrong, and that actually the rules are that you never say my anything. You have to say the noble Lord, Lord XXX, the noble Baroness, Lady so-and-so. You never say my at all. And of course I was mortified that I'd managed to, in my attempt at showing off, got it all completely wrong and upside down and sideways. I have to say to Sheila Noakes, though, that this is not something... I didn't think she asked me if I was offended in the email, and I wasn't offended at all, because actually it's a good friend that actually explains to you that you're making a fool of yourself, and nobody's told you, because they quite like the fact I'm making a fool of myself. So I've learnt that lesson rather well, and I shall always now refer to the noble Lord Fuchs, although in that instance the noble, it might be more ignoble than noble, I would say. I am, of course, learning these rules and what you have to do, but it is irritating that the content of what you say, the actual substance of what you're talking about, gets overridden by this, are you speaking in the correct formulation, which I don't always do. The other exciting news for you is that despite the fact we're in Tier 2 and it's lockdown measures, the House of Lords shop is open. So I've discovered this shop. I think it's probably for tours, when they're doing tours and people can buy souvenirs. But needless to say, I will be buying the odd House of Lords pencil and Christmas card for people, because there will be people who will be delighted to receive them, even if it is completely tacky. The prices are exorbitant. So I was in there today, quite excitedly filling my basket, only to discover that there's a sale on tomorrow online. And if I go on after midnight, I might be able to get some bargains. So watch out, you might even get a Christmas card, a House of Lords Christmas card from me. But there's House of Lords gin and all sorts of things, so it's all very exciting. And then finally, there's lots of homemade Christmas cakes that the staff have made, the money goes for charity, so I'm definitely going to have one of those as well. The House of Lords is having to carry on till quite late. There's no kind of let up for Christmas, probably until the 23rd of December. I've got no objection to that. It's a working place, so that should be the case. But of course, they are desperately trying to get through as many measures as possible in order to get Brexit done. Although goodness knows, I have to say, as we speak, I'm pessimistic that in such a desperation to get a deal that is feasible, that Boris Johnson is going to sell out and do some terrible deal which will compromise on sovereignty. And I've even heard rumours that they're going to drop Part 5, which was the contentious part of the Internal Markets Bill, which I stuck my neck out and argued for in the House of Lords, defending the government. So it's very irritating to have defended them, only to be sold out by them. But there will be plenty of different rules that will be passed. And then in the next couple of days, just one thing to say to you is that there's going to be a discussion on the COVID regulations on evictions, in which it looks as though the government's doing a good thing because it's postponed the fact that you can't get evicted because of the COVID regulations. However, it hasn't wiped out your rent arrears. And all they're doing, as they are doing with COVID all the way down the line, is kicking the problem into the long grass. The truth of the matter is the impoverishment of people because of the COVID regulations that this government brought in are going to mean a lot more people are going to lose their homes. And I'm going to make as big a louder fuss of it, but using the correct terminology, tomorrow.